What's up guys? Welcome back to the Wander Off-Road YouTube channel. Today we're going to be talking about getting your rig ready for a long road trip featuring the help of Greer Automotive. I made a list of everything you should have done for your truck, and I'm going to read off that list to make sure I don't forget anything. The first thing you should always make sure is done is make sure that everything is up to torque spec. So make sure all your bolts are tight, your wheels are on there completely, make sure your suspension is okay. I also recommend checking your CV axles and your tie rods. Make sure there's nothing loose, nothing leaking. The worst thing you could do is get on a trail and one of those break because you didn't check them properly before you got out there. I have personally had this issue, and I now make sure to check my CV axles every single time I go out on a trip. The next thing you should always make sure is done for your truck is to make sure your tires are properly balanced, that you have them rotated right before the trip just to get that out of the way, especially if you're going to be traveling 3,000 to 5,000 miles on them. And make sure you have a good alignment. The worst thing you can do is drive thousands of miles on a bad alignment. It'll eat your tires up, and once they start wearing a certain way, you can't undo it.
Hey, I'm talking to you.
The next thing you should always do, if you have a winch, is to make sure it is spooled correctly before you leave, and also that your winch line is kept clean. The next thing you should always do before a long road trip, or at least that we recommend doing, is getting an oil change and making sure all of your fluid levels are okay. So checking your coolant, checking your oil, checking your power steering, checking your brake fluid. You want to make sure all of those are filled comfortably for the approximate 3,000 to 5,000 mile trip. Another thing you should definitely consider doing is checking when your last front and rear differential flushes were, as well as your transmission fluid change. I try to do mine every 30,000 to 50,000 miles, which can be overkill, but when you wheel as hard as I do, it's very important to make sure you're keeping on top of all that. It's also very crucial to get your brakes and your rotors checked, just to make sure you have a decent amount of brake pad, that everything is clean, and your rotors look solid. And if you're feeling real fancy, you can take your truck over to Greer Automotive for their new disc brake conversions. Another thing I like to do is make sure my truck is clean inside and out. The last thing I want is a bunch of dirt in the floor, in the carpets, dust on the dash, and this kind of paint job. The last thing that should always be on your rig prep checklist is to change your air filters, both your cabin filter and your engine filter. You never know how much dust can accumulate these things, even just from driving on the roads. And it can really kill your miles per gallon and cause a lot of issues with heating when you're traveling out west. Greer Automotive always recommends that you have these things in your vehicle at all times on a long road trip. You'd want to carry extra fluids, which include oil, differential fluid, and gray water. Gray water can act as great for washing your hands, your feet, and also if you run out of coolant, you can use it in your coolant system to get off a trail easily. Another thing he recommends you bring is a serpentine belt. Apparently they're very easy to snap and also very easy to fix. But if you're on a trail without one, it can put you in a bit of a pickle. You should also always carry zip ties and some type of Gorilla duct tape, just in case. And finally, you should always carry an extra set of rubber valve stems with you in case you shear off a valve stem, a tire patch kit in case a flat is fixable, and finally, you should always have a basic tool kit with you with some sockets, some wrenches, the works, in case of loose parts.